Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Good evening means Central European time. It's 5 o'clock here in Europe. I'm very happy that you are back with us on the SAPI IP Business Talks. We are happy when you write questions live in our streaming. I will pick that up and talk with our guest today about your questions and comments about our topic today. And today we want to talk about IP and SMEs. IP protection and SMEs. That is what we are looking for today, and I'm very happy that we have the competence in that field here with us today. It's Udo Gennari. Udo, thank you very much for being here. Can you explain us a little bit your background, your expertise? So why are you really the one for talking about SMEs and IP?
Yeah, thanks for the very nice intro, Alex. And I'm eager to tell you a bit about how somebody comes into IP and then really is very fond of it. I started with a study in chemistry back in Innsbruck, and I specialized afterwards in physical chemistry. My PhD thesis was on catalysis on platinum catalysts, studying a new model system which I myself proposed, and which then caused me quite some delays and so on. But at the end, I was very happy that I could get through with my own topic and find some new things, and also had 2 papers made on that. Afterwards, I was almost, let's say, going to Germany because I was interested in a post at Degussa for, this was the start of the diesel engine catalysts. But in the first time it was very fine, but at the second time I said, my girlfriend, my partner, she is an Austrian jurist, but she should also get the post there, and that was too much for them. But in hindsight, it was really an advantage, because I then got to company Planse, which is let's say, a world-class leader in quite some niche fields, but very important fields, ranging from space flight to electronics to nuclear energy and so on. And later on, I then changed the county from Tyrol to Upper Austria, where I'm now since 1993. Working for an engineering company with worldwide activities. And this was also a very interesting post, a mixture chemical engineering and also site manager and so on. Very often in South Korea. I spent 2.5 years in South Korea, accumulated, which was a very good thing, to see a completely different kind of society and habits. And later on, I then decided, family was already increasing, so we had our first child. And at first, she was taken with her by my wife, but then we decided it's better not to continue like that. And so I looked for another occupation, and was really happy that I found this posting of an IP post. But and then there were some, let's say, some thoughts of the CEO of the smaller company, whether I would fit in with my wage, my age, and so on. But we both gave it a try, and it worked out very well. So I was
Which
really
means,
fond of
excuse
it,
me,
and maybe
which
just to
means you
tell.
became very experienced in that field, right?
Yeah, exactly. And my IP experience actually started before. It started as an inventor at these two companies. So I was inventor or co-inventor in at 14 patent families. So I had this experience as an inventor already.
So
I
you know
also
both
then
sides.
got an experience as license contract negotiator, because in a large EU project, we were asked to, let's say, to make the conditions clear before the project starts or in the consortium agreement. And I was then facing a patent attorney or two patent attorneys of two different companies. I was accompanied also by a jurist of our side, and let's say we managed to get from a very crazy condition to a good one with good arguments and so on. And so this was also an experience I had, that licensing, in case we had this whole thing developed, but you always should think about it before it happens, yeah? Because afterwards it's even more difficult to get, let's say, a contract on that. And so these experiences helped me also in getting into this new subject. And I found very good conditions here. For instance, one thing is we are member of the Enterprise Europe Network. So I was member of this Enterprise Europe Network team. And this was also, let's say, funding the activity a bit, because we offered it, most of our work we offered for free to the SMEs. And this had to be financed by somebody else, and this was Enterprise Europe Network mainly. And so this started very early, and then I was really fond of, let's say, increasing our competence in IP, which was also enabled because we are also a Patlib center. We had a support by the European Patent Office. And I was attending quite some courses for free on this on behalf of the European Patent Office. For instance, learning patent valuation. And Alex, this was the first time I met you in Ljubljana back quite some time. And so I used...
Yeah, I would say at least 10 years ago, right?
Yes. And I took the chance really to delve into new subjects. And I also, for instance, learned patent valuation quite a bit and used it then also for clients with IP Score. And I had then one example where this worked out very well. He was afterwards enthusiastic about getting one investor and 3 licensees, which all said that this external patent valuation or patent portfolio valuation, it was in fact, that this helped a lot in the contracts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I mean, that is really something which can help the SMEs when there is a seen as a governmental part, something official, and when such a person then says, okay, that makes sense what happens here, and that has a value. Fascinating. So, and tell us a little bit in addition about this institution in Upper Austria.
Sure. So this institution is called Business Up Austria. It was formerly called Economy Agency, which was easier to transport. Nowadays, also the government wants us to be a location agency, so we are supporting also foreign companies coming into Upper Austria, or employees coming from abroad to, let's say, cope with this situation of this high demand of experienced people. And so we are a location agency, but I would say that most of our activities are geared towards innovation support.
Okay.
Innovation support in different ways. So from grant support so helping the SMEs to get EU project funding after a proper project proposal. So we make proposal checks and support in that size. Clearly, we also have this Enterprise Europe network, which fosters international cooperation. And we have, for instance, also, which is an important part of Business Up Austria, we have 8 clusters which serve the needs of these branches, from plastics cluster, automobile cluster, to a newer one, clean tech cluster, and 5 other ones. So there we have a membership, let's say, schedule. So these clusters have members for which events are organized, certain education schemes are set up, and so on. And also exchange between them is made. And in total, I have just recently heard head count is now 177, but we have quite some mainly female colleagues who return from maternity leave and clearly don't work full-time. But I would say even full-time equivalents, we are somehow between 110 and 120.
Wow, it's
So
really manpower there.
Yeah, we are quite strong supporting Upper Austrian industry and especially also the SMEs. And this really is also, let's say, a very good thing, which makes oneself satisfied with what you do, or let's say you find a lot of sense in it.
And then I have heard that you joined I3PM and you are a committee chair there for SME issues. So what is that?
Yeah, well, that is one of the more recent, let's say, broadenings of my interests. I was really happy when I was invited to be a chair there. And because I'm very much concerned with IP issues for SMEs, so the topic there fits ideally. I found very interesting other chairs there with whom I already had a lot of conversations now. But the real kickoff will be when we have our website up and running, which will be very soon, I hope. Last inputs, some photos, others have to be made. And I invite everybody to pass by and see what the profiles of the people there are, and in the upcoming weeks and months, what are our activities.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so we will report also. Yesterday was an event from I3PM. I think it was a public event. So we will report also there. There was a recording. So we will support with a link to the recording on the IP Business Academy. So we want to talk today about last week's events about SMEs. Events on which we are already reported, at the IP Business Academy LinkedIn feed. And so one thing is, it's again and again, it's a question of money. So SMEs quite often says, okay, we don't have the resources to take care about IP, or IP in general is expensive. And okay, I mean, basically we have limited resources. Otherwise, we wouldn't call it economics. So economics is the game of limited resources. So when you have unlimited resources, it's not economics.
Yeah.
And and so big companies have big resources, but big challenges, and smaller companies have smaller resources, and compared to the big companies, smaller challenges. But obviously, it is quite often a question of resources, of funding, and there is a support scheme. Can you explain us a little bit what the EU IPO is doing there?
Sure, I will do in a minute, but just one remark. We have it in our IB training that we say a common, let's say, misunderstanding is IP is so costly. But giving away your IP, having it copied, is much more costly. So
Definitely.
therefore, this was just a remark to that, because we also convey it in our IP trainings. Yeah, the AOIPO is really doing a wonderful job here, and I have already counseled a lot of our SMEs in the past months on that, also last year. And they really follow this, let's say, this idea or this impetus to give funding to SMEs in order to strengthen their IP and to get from IP to IPR. And especially it is around funding the costs for trademark application and for design applications. So design protection is also covered by it. Both things have also been funded last year, but this year the funding has even improved, or has a higher rate nowadays. And there is one thing yet to come. I have just talked before to a friend at the Austrian Patent Office, whether he knows how long it is delayed, because this year also patents will be funded by this SME fund of the AOIPO, but it has been delayed a bit. It will not come in March. It will come most probably in April. So this year also patenting costs are covered. But in that regard, one has to say that patenting costs are already quite well funded in some countries. I take as an example Austria, which has, I would say, compared a very good one at least, which is a 80% funding, encompassing not only the national patenting, but also the international one via PCT. So clearly not all the later costs of nationalizing, but these two things combined give really a jump start to SMEs, that they go this way, that they are encouraged to protect their IP by patents if it's technological. But
Yeah,
I
it's
see
definitely a reasonable support, right? I mean, it's not
exactly.
just more money. Yeah.
Yeah, it's reasonable support, and it comes also in quite many countries. It comes with an IP scan support, counseling also in IP questions. This is also part of the EU funding, but in some countries it's not that necessary. Probably also in German, but also in Austria, because we have already, or we had already before that, own programs. In Austria, you call it Discover IP, where the Austrian Patent Office and the AWO, a funding organization, which is in other duties also kind of a funding bank of Austria. They work together, go to SMEs, and because for SMEs it's free. Yeah? They are not catering for big companies, they are catering for SMEs, and they then get really 360-degree survey of their IP. So what is their IP? What can be protected? What do they have to take care of? Also in treaties and so on, or in publications. So it's a very comprehensive program, which I actually also integrated as a tool in this 4 years IP EU European project VIP for SME, where I was, let's say, mainly responsible for an IP toolbox, and I looked for good tools from various sources, and this one was also from Austria, IP Score. What does this show again?
Just to mention, Udo,
Yeah, sure.
Ivan Gauci, an
Yeah.
EU IPO colleague and an MEPLM alumnus, he wrote a master thesis which is public
Yeah.
available about
Yeah.
about these IP scan programs from the
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
from the different national authorities, and he compared that and what they have, which kind of IP management understanding this the support schemes have. That is very interesting. So we I will give a link in the after this show. I will give a
Very
link
good. I mean, this
to
is
that
even
paper.
one more example of the influence SAPI and I3PM and others have, which so that a lot of very relevant master theses and so on come along, which really give a sound additional information and basis for decisions. This
So
is
Dr.
something which I follow.
Dr. Shupeoik has a very interesting question. It's about the volume of that project. So I would take it in two ways. So on the one
Yeah.
hand, do you have an idea how many companies are supported? And on the other hand, do we have any idea how many companies might be in need for that? So that is that. I mean, I don't know, but I think it's a good
Yeah.
question. It's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know the million euro exactly. I just know that beyond 5,000 SMEs have been supported last year, and the fund has been empty before a year's end. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's good news, right? That's good news.
Exactly.
That means that the UIPO made a good job in communicating that the support is there,
Yeah.
and obviously, and it's also attractive. So the SMEs are using that, because we have so many fundings from the Commission out there which are not used at the end. So they are badly communicated, and they are obviously not really necessary.
Yeah. I mean,
I think
one has
that's
to
good.
add that additionally to the communication by UIPO, also national bodies and companies like us, agencies like us, have eagerly spread the word, because we realized very soon that this is a very good offer also for our SMEs. And therefore, we integrated it immediately in our counseling scheme.
Okay.
So I think this makes the whole world round, that you have an institution like EUIPO spending the money on it, having its communication channels. At least they reach us, that's clear. But I would not say that they have reached all the SMEs. I would say that such intermediaries are very helpful in spreading the word to the SMEs, because it's also that the SMEs really distinguish whether they just have to read something somewhere, or whether somebody who is in contact with them and a reliable person, you would say, or let's say a person of high trust, proposes this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that we have that so often. So I'm working heavily with the EPO and the HTPC initiative. Right today we had another big meeting there, and it's again and again the same thing. So how can we reach the people? How can we create awareness for IP? And there's funding out there, there's support there, and it's again and again a hard job to really to reach the people. And this is, I mean, who is now with us probably know that we have a study on that right now, on the digitalization of the client relationship. And by the way, everybody is invited to join us there. And this digitalization, so especially on LinkedIn, that the IP community comes more and more on LinkedIn and discussing things and reaching also SMEs and startups and the targets, so to speak, from the IP experts. That changes at the moment the situation. It makes it easier to address people with IP topics, and not just that the IP guys complain on a conference bar. They complain that nobody wants to listen to them when they talk about IP. I mean, that is a little bit changing due to LinkedIn and digital communication. And I think the ambassadors of the
they also spread the word.
IP help desk, exactly, I3PM. That are all initiatives to come out of this nutshell, of this core of IP competencies, and go out into the real world where we have these issues here. Another thing which was also posted last week is about the unitary patent, and that's a big thing, of course. And we had lots of postings out there from patent attorneys who had a sunrise picture, because now we have the sunrise period of the unitary patent and these opt-out things. So I don't really want to go into the topic, but to a certain extent, do you think that it is now easier to inform SMEs about changes in law or new opportunities? I mean, it's not just a formality here. That's a big change.
Game changer. That's a game changer in some way.
And do you think that these startups are well informed about that, or what is your? I mean, you are directly in contact. You are on the frontier with them. So, how do you think is the level of knowledge about such a game changer?
So I would say we are addressing this challenge that clearly not all SMEs know about it, but we want to inform them in, let's say, in some formats which are enabled. And one format, for instance, which was rather new for us, we did it also for funding and other things, was a 1x1 crash course on IP. Because this was online, you reach more people. I mean, we see it here that this is a format of choice nowadays quite often. And we there also informed about the unitary patent and about the UPC to some less extent, but mainly unitary patent, transferring the message that overall it's definitively an advantage for SME, because not only that you have dramatically reduced costs if you want to address many countries, or on the other hand, for the same amount of money you get more countries, but also the convenience that you pay only one annual fee to the European Patent Office, instead of if you have 8, for instance, nowadays you pay to 8 different offices the annual fee. And you can be rest assured that most SMEs then say, I cannot do it alone. Let the patent attorney do this. But this almost doubles the costs in the first years, yeah, because clearly they also charge something. You would not have to do it, but then you have to take really care that you don't miss any dates and so on. And now with a unitary patent, you have one annual fee, which is only the amount of currently 4 annual fees or 4 countries of most patenting, namely Germany, France, Italy, and Netherlands, because UK has gone out of the game. Otherwise, UK would clearly be in. And so this is something which you really can advise them to think about this. And we did it now since, I would say, over a year, that we hinted a bit that it will probably come. It was then a bit delayed, but now it's definitively starting 1st of June this year. And this really makes a difference, because if you consider business models of the SMEs, if you consider licensing options they have now dramatically increased, because you can only have a license where you also have a patent. Up to now, it was nationally validated EP, for instance, but then if you don't have it in Poland, you have no chance of a license, or in other countries.
Yeah.
So very often they ended up having decreased the number even from maybe 8 or 6 to 4 in the first years because of the costs, and then the chances for licensing were much smaller.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that leads us to the third post from last week. It's about licensing. We have here a big case, obviously.
That's not the SME case.
No,
but
that's really not an SME. But okay, typically you have no public sources for SME licensing
They don't publish it.
There is no obligation. By the way, unfortunately, there is no obligation to publish anyhow licensing information. I speak from the experience of an valuator, and it would be a very a great source of knowledge when there is an obligation to publish that. But on the other hand, I mean, it's a private contract between two companies, and why should be there an obligation to publish it? There are good reasons for not publishing it. Exactly. But I mean, licensing, it sounds so. When I'm in contact with SMEs, it's not so much, but not so often. But when I'm in contact with them, I hear that we license it. Yeah. So I mean,
in licensing.
No, we
out licensing.
We have developed something, and then
okay,
what is your business model? What do you want to do with it? And then they say, we will license it. I mean, to be honest, licensing is first of all, it's just it's a kind of payment mechanism. Yeah, it's just there is a usage from a third party, and for this usage, the third party is paying. But that's it. I mean, explains nothing. Yeah. So how do you want to find your licensing partners? So then, how you want to design your licensing contract? How do you make sure that you motivate your licensee that things will go right? So then when it comes to enforcement, it can become very complex. And so let us assume you have a licensee, but you don't have the money to enforce your patents against third parties. So why should the licensee pay the money? And so many aspects, complex aspects. So what is your experience? So my experience is that SMEs typically don't realize how complex a licensing, let's say, business model, or let's say an exploitation mechanism. Licensing as an exploitation mechanism is complex. And my experience is that SMEs characteristically underestimate the level of complexity in dealing with that. So what is your experience here?
Well, I can underline this to a large extent that they really underestimate the challenges in licensing. For instance, as you mentioned, if somebody attacks the patent, a licensor has to defend it, and sometimes he is not really in a good position for that, and then also the license contract then crumbles if he cannot defend it. And other things are also, how can you really say that the numbers which you get are really correct? There I inform, for instance, the SMEs that usual things are okay. You get these numbers at this and these intervals, and if you really think that this is very strange, that this cannot be the truth because you have other information from the market and so on, that they should have sold more, then you should have you should have integrated a clause which says, in case of real doubt, you are allowed to send some economy attorney, I don't know exact name, so somebody who is experienced in economy, and
accountant, a chartered accountant,
Wirtschaftsprüfer, yeah, kind of that. So this person clearly has, or this person can, if it's really in doubt, the whole thing, can inspect the books of the licensee and can see, okay, is this reasonable or not? In case it turns out that it was correct, then the one giving the order has to pay, so the licensor. Yeah. But in case it is not correct, the licensee has to pay, and maybe even some additional fee. Yeah. So, but you have to understand these things, and you have to implement it in the license contract.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, later on, it's very difficult.
Yeah, that is a very good point, and especially this enforcement, this maintenance of licensing contracts. I mean, one thing is to establish a license, we have a contract now, but the question is what happens later on. So everybody says, okay, now we have our contract, but whether the licensee pays correctly according to the scheme. That is really something where you need a certain experience, that it is not so much the contract at the first place, of the question how we will do that in the future. Absolutely.
It's the same with marriage contracts. You always have to foresee what happens in case it goes wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Maria Boykova-Weinans has a very, very good point. I would like to bring that up here. She says that that SMEs don't feel, so to speak, underinformed, which means there is unbelievable much material out there, very good sources. And I'm happy that you mentioned the IP Business Academy. Thank you very much. But also, of course, I3PM is a source of relevant information. But this is not the problem. The problem is that
how to sort it. How
to get a guidance, how to get an overview. So what is relevant at the right time, at the right place? And I think there again, these institutions, especially I3PM or the IPI help desk, that are contact points. I mean, you in Austria have a wonderful example. By the way, I'm one of the authors of your national IP strategy in Austria. I had the honor to work there, by the way, without any payment. But what we said, what the recommendation was, that there should be a national contact point for Austrian companies, inventors, creatives, and this national economics should coordinate all the information, the funding possibilities, the support schemes which are out there. And we have also these different levels. Yeah, you have the national initiatives, sometimes the regional initiatives, and then you have the European on top. So that makes things very complicated for an SME. So what do you think? How can we improve these situation for SMEs? I mean, we can develop a chatbot, right? And a patent, so an IP supports chatbot. But do you think that SMEs have that kind of guiding support, or is there something which should be created?
Well, I would completely agree that there is a wealth of material out there, of information material, but you have to consider that such people at SMEs, they do not have time to, let's say, go through all the things, judge which is relevant, which is not relevant, and so on. And therefore, I think it needs a good cooperation between those who give the input, also like IP Business Academy or others, or also IPO, and others who try to get all this to the ground. And these are, for instance, the advisors at the Enterprise Europe Network offices. At least those, I mean, they also have a lot of other tasks, but one of the tasks clearly is IP. And there, it is also necessary that we exchange a bit between offices, because not every office in Austria or in Germany or in whole of Europe has the IP competence. So there it's also necessary that some things are, let's say, then forwarded to the IP expert. And there are new schemes in Enterprise Europe Network, like how's it called? Yeah, where such forwarding is also, let's say, part of the work.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree more.
Hub and spoke is the model.
Exactly.
So you have a hub, but I can, and I have already served as spoke for other Enterprise Europe Network offices for their clients, in case there was a, let's say, more complex IP question on the table.
And something what I really admire is what the HTBC initiative is doing with their IP clinics. So they organize this you can come rush in as an SME with your question. There are experts and they want to help you, and the EPO is funding that, but it is done in addition to other conferences. So Bo Hayden with the ZIP in Gothenburg will do the big ZIP conference, and the EPO is putting these IP clinics and financing these IP clinics in addition to this already existing conference. I think that's extremely smart and follows exactly the route which Maria was mentioned, that we need to have a face-to-face interaction and to guide the people in the right direction.
Exactly. But so, by the way, I'm also fond of this HTBC. I was, let's say, following it, starting from an invitation I got to Dublin at the first conference, which I found really very, very well organized, with very high class input and workshops and everything. And I let's say, attended since that time also the online formats, and maybe we have a personal attendance sometimes.
Yeah, we will see. So they want to have a hybrid format, but I think HTBC is something which we can clearly recommend anyhow. That's a very good platform. So Udo, thank you very much for talking with me.
My pleasure.
about this latest news on the IP Business Academy. So everybody is invited to follow IP Business Academy, and then later on to go to the I3PM and the interaction which will happen there. And we're looking forward to your landing page about the SME work of your committee. So thank you very much. And to all of you, thank you for attending. Thanks to all who wrote comments and questions. Udo promised me that he will be available also like me.
Sure.
After show, we maybe we drink a beer or a glass of wine, but we will be available for you to answer to your questions and to discuss with you the IP and SME topic further. Thank you very much. Looking forward seeing you next time in our safety IP business talks. Thank you very much. Bye bye, Udo.
Bye. Thank you.